Good morning, everyone. My name is Mait Kriipsalu. I'm working in Estonian University of Life Sciences. And today I have a double role here. I will first moderate the first speaker, Stefanie Siebert from European Compost Network. And later I will take over and I will speak about digestate certification in Estonia. But first we will start with every time when we talk about biogas, we unintentionally we think about what is done in Europe, what is the status, what are the hot topics, and this is now the great moment of asking Stefanie, the executive director of Compost Network, to introduce a little bit what is the policy side of biogas business and digestate use. Please, Stefanie, introduce a little bit the Compost Network and then open us the topic of digestate.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much as well to you, Mait, to get in touch with me, to give the presentation here in this project of Circle, Rethinking Circularity in Bioeconomy. I hope you can see my presentation in the right modus. Can you confirm?
Yes, it works.
Oh, okay. The title of my presentation is the EU Fertilizing Products Regulation, Challenges and Perspective for Digestate. First, I would like to give you a short outline about my presentation. I will introduce to you first ECN, the role of biowaste in the circular economy. Then I will talk about the framework conditions at European level. And then we will dive into the EU fertilizing product regulation and will also present the perspectives and challenges for operators of composting and anaerobic digestate plants to place their products on the European market. And then finally, I will close with some information. So who is the European Compost Network? The European Compost Network is the leading European organization supporting the biowaste sector in Europe. Our aim is to introduce separate collection of biowaste all across Europe to produce high quality compost and digestate. Because for us, it is very important that we only use clean materials which go into the composting and anaerobic digestion process so that we have the possibility to produce a high quality product. And therefore also quality assurance is a very important issue in our value chain. What are we doing? We are doing mainly networking in our organization. So we have several task groups in ECN which are dealing with different policy topics, but also with the topic of quality assurance. We are also involved in research issues, and we are mainly doing lobby work in Brussels. So we are following the policy developments, the legislative developments on European level. Today we have 66 members from 27 European countries, which are treating 48 million tons of biowaste, which are transferred into compost and digestate. So in total, we represent 4,500 compost and anaerobic digestion plant operators in Europe. So biowaste, I think everybody knows what is biowaste. Biowaste is the organic fraction of municipal waste, but it's also green and park and garden waste. It can be also food waste from food and feed industries. So this is the organic fraction. And we all know that we have up to 60% of biowaste in our municipal waste. So it is really a valuable resource to take them out of waste and to transfer them into products. With the European Green Deal and the Circular Economy Action Plan and its goal to increase the use of recycled materials, the way is passed for respecting the biological cycle in the circular economy and in the environment. The overall goal of the Commission is to become carbon neutral by 2015. And there's a need to keep biowaste away from landfill. We know if biowaste, the organic fraction, goes to landfill, we also release a lot of CO2 emissions, but also methane emissions. So therefore, there's really a need to really recover the biowaste resource in anaerobic digestion plants and in compost plants. With the anaerobic digestion plants, we can also produce biogas and upgrade this to biomethane. And then we have always the residual materials which are digestate and which can also further transferred into compost. We are very happy that the European Commission has had this European Green Deal and several strategies which are related to save the resource of biowaste. So we have the bioeconomy strategy in place, the biodiversity strategy in place, and as well the farm to fork strategy. Under the farm to fork strategy, we are discussing as well the certification of carbon removals, where carbon farming systems should be promoted. But the main issue, where we are firstly related, is the Waste Framework Directive, because biowaste is a waste stream. And therefore, this directive is very, very important for us, but I will come to this topic in a later stage in more detail. First, I would like to give you an overview about the biowaste management situation in Europe. In 2021, we have done a comprehensive survey together with our members. We have collected from 17 European member organizations data on biowaste collection and the treatment of biowaste, and we have compared these data and take them into account together with the data from the European Environmental Agency, which has also published a report in 2020. And based on these data we have compiled together, we have also evaluated or assessed the impact on the employment, on the markets for these materials, and also how these products can contribute to improve soils. All these results are published in the ECN Data Report 2022, which is freely downloadable on our website. So if you want to dive into this topic, you have the possibility to download this report. What is the result of this report? Today we know we have in total 5,800 composting and anaerobic digestion plants in Europe. So we take into account Norway, Switzerland, and UK as well in the statistics. And you can see that the main treatment technology for biowaste is still composting. So the majority of plants are composting plants with 3,800 and 2,000 anaerobic digestion plants. And we have also calculated how many people are working in these plants, and we came to the result. This is always related to the size of the treatment plant, so how many input capacity they have. In composting plants, we have calculated that 11,000 to 18,000 people are employed, and for anaerobic digestion, 2,000 to 5,500 today. When we come to the material which is treated, you can see this here as well, that also the majority of input materials are treated in composting plant. 42 million tons of separately collected biowaste is treated in composting plants, and 29 million tons of biowaste is treated in anaerobic digestion plants. I would like to stress here again that we are speaking here about biowaste from municipal solid waste and from commercial and industrial waste. We are not taking here into account agricultural waste materials. So in total, we have an input of 71 million tons of biowaste, which is recycled to 21 million tons of compost. So mainly the digestate in Europe is also post-treated by composting. So the final result is often compost. And as we have more reliable data on this, we have focused on the calculation of compost in our estimation. So the final results that we have in 21 million tons of compost available in Europe. And if we apply these 21 million tons of compost with 10 tons of compost per hectare and land, we can cover only 2% of arable land in Europe. But with this material, we can still cover or improve 16% of the soils which are severe on erosion. But what is also important that we bring carbon back to the soil. This is the main issue why we produce organic materials which goes back to the soil. So we want to increase as well and maintain the organic matter content in the soil. And by this, we sequester as well carbon. And we can save, when we talk about these 20 million tons of compost, we save 1 million tons of CO2 equivalents, which is equivalent if we grow 19.1 million urban trees over 10 years. Okay, but what might be interesting for you as well is the input for composting and anaerobic digestion. And you can see here on the slide that there's a difference. The main fraction which goes into composting is green waste, garden waste, and food waste from households, which are separate collected. And when we look to anaerobic digestion, there's mainly food waste and other. That means also energy crops goes into anaerobic digestion. It is clear that the green waste, park and garden waste is not suitable for anaerobic digestion because they are more lignin rich, and that's the reason why they are going into composting and not in anaerobic digestion. And you can take much more energy out of food waste, and that is the reason why food waste is predominantly treated in anaerobic digestion plants. Coming to the next topic, the framework condition on European level, I still mentioned that for us the Waste Framework Directive is very important, as well the Landfill Directive, which deals as well with waste material. The packaging waste regulations plays as well a role when we talk about compostable packaging materials. We have the framework for certification of carbon removals, and then the EU fertilizer product regulation, which is a very important further step forward for our products to be placed on the market. But there's as well the Industry Emission Directive, which regulated the requirements how anaerobic digestion and composting has to be taking place in relation to emission to air and to water. We have the EU taxonomy, as well as the Renewable Energy Directive, which is also very important for anaerobic digestion plants, and the Animal Byproduct Regulation, because we have to deal with this regulation as well, as bio-waste from kitchen are considered as category 3 material under the Animal Byproduct Regulation. But then as well, we have to respect as well the EU Nitrate Directive. On this slide, I will only focus on the waste background, on the waste regulative background. What is for us important that we have on a European level an overall recycling target for municipal waste. So bio-waste, as I mentioned in my introduction, can reach up to 60% in the municipal waste. And we have to reach on European level an overall recycling target of 65% of municipal waste by 2035. And this can only be reached if we recycle as well the biological fraction, the bio-waste fraction in the municipal waste. Otherwise, no country will reach this overall recycling target. Therefore, we are very happy, or we have promoted and supported this, that the Commission has set up a clear target to do separate collection of bio-waste, or doing source separation of bio-waste in all countries by the end of 2023. So all European countries have to introduce separate collection of bio-waste, or have to make regulation that bio-waste is treated at source. That means home composting should be introduced, but this has to be controlled as well. Otherwise, it cannot be calculated as recycling. In addition to this, in the Waste Framework Directive, there's a further driver, because from 2027, countries are not allowed anymore to take into account mechanical biological treatment of mixed waste for the recycling target. So you have to do separate collection, because otherwise you cannot fulfill high quality recycling. Okay, and I think it's also well known that we have the landfill targets that a maximum 10% of municipal solid waste should be can be landfilled by 2035. So this is also a driver that member states have to go to more recycling practices, and also to prevent waste. I will not go into the other details, because I think I will then will take too much time to present you all the other legislative effects, which are probably well known by you. And you can also see here that we have in our report shows that we have large differences in relation to how much bio-waste is separate collected in the countries. So there's a lot of work to do to improve separate collection in the countries. And we have also estimated in our data report if we want to reach the overall recycling target by 2035 with 65%, we have to collect additional 40 million tons of municipal bio-waste and to recycle this into compost and digestate. Otherwise, we will fail this overall recycling target. Today, we only recycle 70% of bio-waste, and we have to reach overall 35% that we can contribute to the 65% recycling target. Okay, I think I have given enough information about the policy background, but what for us is important, it's not only that we want to do separate collection, we want to produce high quality products. So high quality recycling is the aim, and as I mentioned before, separate collection is a precondition to produce high quality materials. And as we are talking about waste derived materials, to get also an acceptance on the market, quality assurance is needed. Therefore, ECN has still set up a quality assurance scheme in 2010 for compost, and in 2014 as well, we have set up European-wide criteria for digestate. And for us, it's clear that these products have to be quality controlled, otherwise you will not find a market for these materials. Based on our report, we can tell you that 25% of the materials which are separately collected are fulfilling the requirements of the ECN QRS manual. And I'm really happy that also Estonia has taken up our quality manual as a basis for setting up their quality criteria for compost and digestate. And then concerning as an organization, for us, it was always clear that we need harmonized standards across Europe, that we want to have a harmonized market as well. So we were also involved in the discussion of end of waste criteria for compost and digestate. The Commission has started the discussion in 2008 for several waste streams, so for paper, glass, but as well for bio-waste. And since the beginning, we were involved on behalf of ECN in the studies of the European Commission. And in 2014, the Joint Research Center of the European Commission in Sevilla has published the technical report on the end of waste criteria for compost and digestate. Unfortunately, due to the elections on European level for the new Commission, the new Commission has not followed up to set up end of waste criteria under the Waste Framework Directive for bio-waste, because in the previous processes for paper, they failed to come up to a final agreement. So they cancelled the initiatives to set up end of waste criteria in relation to the Waste Framework Directive. But the new Commission has taken up to revise the EU fertilizing products regulation, and they agreed to integrate the end of waste criteria for compost and digestate in this regulation. The aim for this revision of the EU fertilizing products regulation was also to include organic materials in the fertilizer regulation, because the old fertilizer regulation was only related to mineral fertilizers and to liming materials. So all other materials like organic fertilizers, organic mineral fertilizers, or as well growing media were not regulated in the former fertilizer regulation. And that's the reason why also the new fertilizer regulation has the name EU Fertilizing Products Regulation. That means that we are talking about several different fertilizing products. What is the aim of this fertilizing products regulation? This is to create a harmonized market that these fertilizing products can be freely traded across Europe. So all fertilizing products with a CE label can be freely traded. They wanted to boost the market as well for recycled materials, and therefore they have taken up this end of waste criteria in the regulation. And they have also considered to include as well quality assurance in the fertilizer regulation for all fertilizing products. This includes as well limit values for biological, physical, and chemical parameters in the fertilizer regulation, but for sure as well declaration values for net nutrients. So finally, we can say the EU fertilizing product regulation is the interface regulation for compost and digestate. The EU fertilizing regulation came into force on the 16th of July 2022. And the Commission has set up as well an expert group on European level where all member states are represented, but as well the stakeholder organizations like ECN or EBA. And we are working together out as well frequently asked questions. This frequently asked question document is a living document where open questions of the fertilizer regulation are explained, and this FAQ document is seen as a guidance document for the implementation of the fertilizer regulation. So, but coming into detail, I have to tell you that the EU fertilizing product regulation is very technical and very complex. I will try to keep it short and I hope as well comprehensive. As I told you, end of phase criteria for compost and digestate are set in this regulation. And we have to see that compost and digestate are seen as input materials for fertilizing products. So that means that compost and digestate are CMC component materials, which can be used in different fertilizing products. So we have on the left side the CMC materials, the component materials, where we have clear criteria for compost, CMC3, CMC4 for fresh crop digestate, so for compost from renewable energy crops, and we have CMC5, digestate from waste materials. Therefore, we have specific criteria which these three materials have to fulfill, and then they can be used to produce an organic fertilizer or an organic soil improver or a growing media or to produce a fertilizing product blend. These are the PFCs. And in these PFCs criteria, we have also values for nutrient set, but also safety criteria when we look to Salmonella or E. coli, which are regulated on the fertilizing product category. And if you want to place a fertilizing product on the European market, you have to do a conformity assessment. And there are different conformity assessment procedures described in the fertilizer regulation, depending on the input material. If the input material are waste materials, like for compost or for CMC5 digestate from bio-waste, then you have to do an external control. And this is the procedure module D1, which I will explain in a later stage. Here you can find the criteria. So if you want to set organic fertilizer on the market, you have to differentiate if you are on solid or liquid digestate. For digestate, we often talk about liquid digestate. We have also solid digestate products. And here you see the minimum contents of nutrients which you have to fulfill. And for sure, on behalf of ECN, we have analyzed if our materials which are on the market or which are produced from bio-waste or as well from other feedstuffs, also from manure, can fulfill the minimum requirements for nutrients. And unfortunately, I have to tell you that digestate is at the moment not able to fulfill the minimum criteria because the minimum criteria are set on fresh matter and our materials do not reach the minimum content on the nutrient values. So digestate can at the moment not be placed as an organic fertilizer, neither as liquid or solid on the European market. But we have also criteria for an organic soil improver. An organic soil improver has an additional criteria, which is a bottleneck for digestate, that you have a dry matter content of a minimum of 20%. This is for sure as well for all the liquid digestate, not possible, but for solid digestate. There's the criteria that you have to fulfill as well a minimum content of organic matter. This is possible for solid digestate, but for liquid digestate, we have this problem with the dry matter content. But solid digestate as well as compost can be placed as an organic soil improver on the European market. In addition to these criteria, also the fertilizing products have criteria for heavy metals. You see here the list of threshold values, and here I can tell you that this is not a problem for compost, not for digestate, to fulfill the limit values for heavy metals. As I mentioned before, the only category of fertilizing products is an organic soil improver, how you can place a solid digestate on the European market. In addition to this, these are specific criteria which relates to compost and digestate from biowaste, so for CMC3 and CMC5. In addition, you have to guarantee that you do not have more than 6 milligram per kilogram pH age 16 components in your material. You have to fulfill a limit value for impurities. When we talk about impurities, we are talking about the macroscopic impurities above 2 millimeter of glass, metal, and plastics. And then you have to fulfill as well as stability criteria. For compost, you can choose if you would like to use the oxygen uptake rate or the self-heating test. And for digestate, you have to fulfill oxygen uptake rate, the self-heating test, or to determine the residual gas potential. Here we have as well a bottleneck for digestate. The limit value for the oxygen uptake rate is very stringent, and we have also evaluated that this might be crucial to be met for digestate. Okay, but what is also important that in the fertilizer regulation, the process requirements are laid down, as well as requirements on the input materials, as it is clear that you can only use separately collected bio-waste material. You are not allowed to use any sewage sludge in these materials. You are not allowed to use mixed waste in this as input material. Then you have to fulfill specific process criteria, time temperature profiles for digestate, for anaerobic digestion, and for composting. But you have to have in mind as well that if you treat any animal byproduct materials, which is kitchen waste from households as well from restaurants, you have to fulfill the animal byproduct regulations. That means that you have to fulfill the standard transformation parameters of 70 degree 1 hour 12 millimeter. So, and this is as well a bottleneck for our materials to be placed on the European market. And as this is the main bottleneck for our materials, because it makes sense to do anaerobic digestion and composting of food waste from kitchen, from restaurants, and so on. And therefore, ECN has applied for alternative transformation parameters under the animal byproduct regulation. So our application is at the moment under evaluation assessment by the Scientific Committee of the European Food and Safety Authority, and we hope that this will be positive validated, so that we have in future also alternative time temperature profiles which will be accepted under the animal byproduct regulation. We have still, the Commission has still published a delegated act to define the endpoint of the manufacturing chain for animal byproducts. This is also a quick related to the EU fertilizer regulation, that this is the need. And it's clear that compost and digestate are interpreted as safe materials if they reach the endpoint, but the endpoint is only reached for animal byproduct materials if you fulfill the standard transformation parameters. So we will see into 2024 if we will get a positive feedback from the scientific committee, and we hope that with alternative time temperature profiles that we will be able to also to place compost and digestate from kitchen waste on the European market as fertilizing products. As I mentioned before, if you fulfill all these criteria, you have to undergo a conformity assessment procedure. That means that the operator or the manufacturer of a fertilizing product, this can be directly the compost producer or the anaerobic digestion digestate producer, they have to be set up a quality assurance scheme on their plant. Their materials have to be proved, and they have been externally proved. This is when we talk about the model D1, which is one conformity assessment procedure for waste-derived materials. And this can only be done by an external conformity assessment body, which is accredited. This is also a bottleneck because at the moment we do not have any accredited organization on European level which is accredited by a notified body under the EU fertilizer regulation. We hope that will be in future because we know that some of our quality assurance organizations are looking for accreditation. And we know as well that the Certification Center of Recycled Materials from Estonia, they have still an accreditation, but I think they haven't applied so far to become a notified body under the EU fertilizing regulation. So far, there's no notified body which is dealing with compost and digestate, but we hope that this will be solved in future as well if we have applications from our organizations or if there's also a way how existing quality assurance organizations can be involved in the conformity assessment procedures. Okay, coming to the final result, I think also the time is running out. So we have with the EU fertilizer regulation, we have opportunities, but we have also a lot of challenges. It is nice to have that there is a possibility to reach a product status. I think it's always good also for a market perspective if you talk about products and not about waste materials. It might also increase the product price and you will also reach a higher acceptance by the consumers. There is still the opportunity that the recycling of bio-waste is promoted more or less. It's very much promoted by the European Commission and as well by several member states. There's also a high demand also from the growing media sector to find alternative to replace peat with solid digestate or as well with compost material. So the demand is there for these products, but there are still a lot of, as I have shown before, there are some bottlenecks which we cannot fulfill at the moment. And the main issue is the animal byproduct regulation and for digestate as well, the criteria which are set in the EU fertilizer regulation so far. But there's also, how you will say, there's a chance because the Commission is considering to evaluate the EU fertilizing regulations. They have recognized that there are some bottlenecks and that it's difficult to really place recycled materials as product on the market. So we have now the possibility to also give feedback to the Commission. Where are the bottlenecks? What do you have to change? And to start the discussion process again. This will start in 2024, the open call. There is still a survey open by the European Commission to respond to this. And if you have an interest to place your digestate or compost material on the European market or as well other materials coming from waste, please take the chance and respond to this open survey of the European Commission. Okay, I think this is a summary of what I have mentioned before. We know that our materials can really contribute to fight against climate change. We can contribute to improve our soils. We can deliver nutrients, so we can also replace mineral fertilizer with digestate and compost. And we also know that there's also a need or a request by farmers for using alternatives than mineral fertilizers. We know with the crisis we have at the moment that the mineral fertilizer prices are very high, and therefore also the demand for our products increased in the last year enormously. Okay, but what is needed as well are quality assurance and certification schemes for our materials, which have to be set up as well in several member states still. Okay, coming to the end. So ECN is following the policy discussion, but we are also following the research area. So we are involved at the moment as well in 2 European projects where we want to guide as well how to do separate collection and how is composting and anaerobic digestion is done in the best way. And the second project is an Interact project where we also do knowledge sharing about good practices on composting in rural areas, but also on home composting, master composting. Anaerobic digestion is also included in this project. So if you're interested in this project, you can also look into these websites. In addition to this, we publish regular newsletters, position papers related to the policy issues. You can download our status report and our data report from 2019 and 2022. But in addition, we have also country reports on our website published, which are normally giving a more broader update for each country. We have our ECN quality assurance manual, which has luckily as well distributed in several countries. So it was taken up by Estonia, as well by Ireland, and as well by France. And we have guidance how to use compost in growing media, and also a guidance on the animal byproduct where our materials fall under. So you will find several fact sheets, and please join our website, and you are also welcome as member in ECN. So you have also the possibility to join our network for having a lively discussion with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stefanie. It was a nice, deep and very fast walk through the difficult topic of how things work if you want to be legal and honest. We have some questions in chat. The first one about kitchen waste, and the kitchen waste is considered as animal byproduct. Is it correct?
Yes, this is correct. It's category 3 material under the animal byproduct regulation.
So with the kitchen waste, you can't really avoid the requirements for higher temperature profiles. Then there is a question about farmers. How much the farmers have to how much they can avoid this kind of bureaucracy or extra need for certification, or maybe they also should follow the similar rules as quality assurance and keeping in mind the quality assurance. What's the message for farmers using manure mainly?
Okay, the farmer is responsible for his own products, for his soils. So I think there should be an interest by the farmer as well if he take materials from outside his facility or from his farm, that he have only safe materials. Therefore, I think quality assurance is needed. So as a farmer, if you use your own manure, you do not have to fulfill these requirements. But if you take any material outside from other farms or which are treated in anaerobic digestion plants, I think from a farmer, I would like to be on a safe side to not have any hazard problems with the incoming materials. So I think quality assurance is needed to get acceptance by the farmers or as well by other customers. So I don't know that any growing media producer will buy an input material which is not quality assured, or if they are not doing an own quality assurance of the product.
So it is,
and the same as for if you want to use. So we have also the possibility, and it's very there's a high demand as well for compost. But as well, it's also increasing for solid digestate in the organic farming sector, and the organic farming sector, they request as well quality certificates of these materials. Without these certificates, it's very difficult to bring these materials on the organic farming market, and there you can also get a good price for your products. So we have observed this in Germany, but we have also observed this as well in Italy and also in other countries where the organic farming market is increasing. So the demand at the moment for compost, for quality assured compost and digestate is there.
So even if it is possible to do without it, it is much more beneficial to know everything about your product and advertise it as a quality assured.
Yeah, you have to see at the end as well. You have a certificate, you have analytical results. You know what is coming in. You know exactly your nutrient composition, which is I think for the farmer the most important issue. You have to know how much nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium you have there. What is the availability of this? And with the certificate, all these data are delivered. And normally, when you have a quality assurance organization in the background, they deliver as well the calculation how much digestate or how much compost you should apply to this and this crop. This is also an advantage for a farmer to receive quality assured materials and to be on the safe side.
Yes, thank you. Digestate can be liquid and it can be solid. Can you comment on what is the use of one or the other? Because we have a question telling that a solid digestate is easier to apply and the liquid is more difficult because of the nutrient concentration is low and then you need a lot of transportation. So what are your thoughts about solid and liquid?
Okay, normally we see digestate generally as an organic fertilizer. So the difference between digestate and compost in principles is clear. Digestate has more nutrients than available nutrients than a compost material. A compost material you use mainly to improve your organic matter content in the soil. You can do a basic fertilization with compost, but compost is really seen as an organic fertilizer. Also, when we see it in the framework of the EU fertilizing product regulation, where we do not fulfill the minimum nutrient contents, but in principle, we have a high load of nutrients in the material. For sure, in a solid material, these are concentrated, so you have a higher range of nutrients. In the solid material, this is clear because every material which is solid is concentrated. And you have also a better possibility to distribute. This is clear. But I think farmers which are using manure is also liquid, can also deal with liquid digestate. But here it is as well important to know what is the nutrient content in your material, and there analytical results are needed because it differs as well. The nutrient content in digestate, where you have different sources, if you have energy crops, if you have manure in your digestate, or if you have bio waste in your digestate, you have a very high range of nutrient contents. So there is a need to have analytical results on your composition to make a clear calculation how much nutrients you bring to the soil. And then it depends always if you have the capacity to amend liquid digestate, or if you have to upgrade the digestate by drying, pelletizing, or to post-composting. This is now also an upgrading possibility. I don't know if this is sufficient. I can also say some more, but I'm speaking a lot.
Yeah, the one who asked the question, please ask more if you need that. You need more information. But while you are thinking, still, I'm asking kind of extra sub question for that. You can apply digestate or compost, liquid or solid, only seasonally. How it is with the storage? What is easier to store, or do we have any tendencies of storing this way or that way?
Okay, this is clear that, as I mentioned before, and also in the framework conditions, we have the EU Nitrate Directive. The EU Nitrate Directive is also implemented differently in the member state because it's a directive. A directive can be implemented a different way. If it's a regulation, then you have to do an implementation one-to-one in the member states. So, but I think for the Nitrate Directive, it's also clear that you have different implementations in the member states because you have different climatic conditions and also different soil conditions you have to respect as well. So we have different regulation here, or different implementation regulations in the countries. I think the majority of countries have, how you say it, waiting period where you cannot apply digestate or liquid materials on soils. It's mainly between November and February, or mid of February. It depends on the country, it depends on the region. And this is related as well to the nutrient content in relation to the nitrogen content. But this differs from country to country. And it's clear compost you can store. And normally if you have, as an example from Germany, if you are below 1.5% of total nitrogen, you can apply compost the whole year. But normally you apply compost after the harvest in autumn or in spring. So in total, you need to have storage capacities. And this is for liquid digestate for sure difficult. And that's the reason why I think anaerobic digestion operators are considering to upgrade the digestate to dry, to pelletize it, so that you have also possibilities to store this material, or to bring it directly into a composting plant for post-composting. But for sure, storage is a problem, but and this is also a problem concerning the emissions to air.
Thank you. Then there is a question about carbon credits. Is it possible to apply carbon credits by producing organic amendments with a small carbon footprint?
This is possible, but this is not so we are following as well the carbon removal certification scheme of the European Commission. But for us, it's more important that we get recognized carbon farming practice, so that we can get recognized applying compost and digestate as carbon farming practices, sustainable practices under the Common Agricultural Policy, or as well mentioned in the new soil monitoring law. Carbon credits, there are voluntary carbon credit systems still in place, where compost, I know, is credited, but these are private systems. So there are schemes where you can use this and to get carbon credits, but this is on a voluntary basis.
And does it bring additional income by the one who is applying for such
this
credit?
Is possible. We have collected different carbon credit schemes or carbon removal schemes in a paper in ECN, which is also downloadable on our website. So this differ on the substance. I know that some people get €10 for the carbon credits when you use compost, and you have to show by soil analysis after 5 years that you have maintained the organic carbon content or something like this. But this is depending on the system you have chosen and which is in place. So there's not a general.
Okay, then we have a technical question about time temperature demand. Why it is for composting much longer than for digestion, the time temperature demand?
Because these are completely different processes. Anaerobic digestion is often it's liquid, or you have a dry process. It depends. We have also short processes for composting. We have a lot of different things, but it is also clear that you have to reach a specific temperature. And when we talk about composting, as you have seen as well in one of my first slide, in the composition of input material, we treat as well a lot of green waste in composting plants, which needs a much longer time than if you have only food waste materials to degrade. And then what we want to avoid, or what is clear as well, why we are doing composting? We also want to really eliminate all plant diseases. This is very important, and therefore you need these composting times, and at the end as well to have a mature material. That's the reason. So if you degrade woody materials, you need more time than if you have how you will see not so strong or structured material like food waste. This is also a reason. But these are completely different processes. Yeah, you cannot compare the one with the other.
Okay. Then there is a question about ECN. Is ECN planning to update the quality assurance scheme to cover also organic fertilizers and soil improvers like the fertilizer regulation does? Now it is digested compost only.
Yeah, this is sufficient because you can also, I think the compost can be as well directly an organic soil improver. You don't have to mix it. If you fulfill the criteria, you can, yeah, you will have at the end an organic soil improver, which is a fertilizing product. And so an fertilizing product can be 100% compost material. It can be also probably in 100% solid digestate.
Mm-hmm. Then we have the tough one about Salmonella and coli. Analyzing those is expensive and it adds to the cost. If you apply a certificate, you have to spend money. If you don't apply for certificate, you are allowed to put it in soil without any analysis. So there is a kind of a conflict. If you want to behave good, you have to analyze and spend money. If you don't want to behave well, then do as you want. And you can legally put Salmonella and coli in soil. So there is no such regulation on manure, but there is regulation on digestate and compost about Salmonella and coli.
Yes, that's also the reason why the Commission didn't take into account manure as an input, not as a direct, without any treatment as input material for the fertilizing products. So you have to use only processed manure. The Commission is at the moment working on criteria, specific criteria for processed manure. So the manure has to undergo any process if you want to put it into an EU fertilizing product. So manure, you cannot treat as an EU fertilizing product. You can use manure on your own land. You can use manure in your country under your national legislation, but you cannot use it as for an EU fertilizing product. And I think when we and there you will have at the end you have for the fertilizing products this E. coli is requested, and Salmonella is requested for all fertilizing products, not only for compost and digestate, but as well for organic, for mineral fertilizers, organic mineral fertilizers, and so on. If you want to have the CE label, you have to do this. And we know as well for our waste materials, we have countries where quality assurance is obligatory, and we have countries where it is voluntary. But the way goes in the direction that this is needed. Yeah, and concerning the direct application of manure, the farmer has to decide if he wants to take manure from other farmers which are not analyzed or whatever. This is up to him. For sure, there's a conflict. Yeah, we have always a conflict between the use of manure, because when we as well for compost, but mainly for digestate.
Thank you. Then it is when you talk with biogas plant owners, they say there is no clear market demand for digestate-derived fertilizers, and that's therefore the risk of increasing operational cost is not interesting. What would you say then? Is there a real market demand for products like ammonium sulfate?
Okay, this depends. It's a tricky market. This depends on your region. This depends on also on the mineral fertilizer prices. So what I hear from countries at the moment, it is possible to get rid of digestate in a good way. We have also the possibility that some farmers are now paying for digestate if they do not have their own manure. And we have always this conflict with the manure market, that there is in some region too much manure and you will not get about digestate. So then you have really to decide if it's really worth to focus only on digestion, or if you are going to post compost to have a higher value product which you can use also for other purposes as only for fertilizing soils for agriculture.
Yes, thank you. And then we go for a while back to the question about carbon farming practices. Can you indicate on some? Can you give a link or something where we could learn more about what others have achieved with carbon credit markets or carbon farming practices? Is there a good example?
There are some good examples. As I mentioned, we have done a survey. We have a paper on our website where we are focusing on carbon farming issues, which is free downloadable. So you can find it on our website under publications. Okay,
then it is nice. Please visit the ECN website, and then there is a written link, and then you will dig more.
Yeah, you can also join ECN as we have also several task groups where we have an exchange between our members also on these issues, because these papers are only derived by the work of by the networking and exchange with our members. So it's really important to have an active discussion between members and between people. Okay, thank you very much.
We got just one more question about organic amendments and optimization of processes to produce such amendments. What do you think? Are there any grants available that one could use for fine-tuning their business or their business ideas?
Oh, this is very difficult. This depends a little bit as well how, first of all, if you want to set up a production plant, you have as well EU fundings, because recycling is promoted of organic materials. Then when you look to the Renewable Energy Directive or regulation, you have in several member states where also anaerobic digestion is promoted of bio-waste. This is all, but this differs from country to country as well.
So the call for joining ECN is actually pretty good, because ECN is a living organism, and if you have a topic to put on table, then this is the place where your voice is heard. But for this section, I think we should wrap up, and I would like to say thank you, Stefanie. It was very nice, as you said, very technical also. But you have to, if you select this as your business branch, or you are dealing on everyday basis with a digestate or compost, then you have to know the details.
Yes.
So thank you very much. And now I think I should take it over and present a case study or the example. How did we do with the end of waste regulation here in Estonia? And let me upload the presentation. So can you see the presentation now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. So my name is once again Mait Kriipsalu. I work in a university, but I try to work together with companies and also with authorities to give a little bit of university knowledge back to the life. And since I am involved in certification of compost and also digestate in Estonia, then I would like to share some of my thoughts and experiences. To begin with, I tried to find the kind of easy figure about digestate, anaerobic treatment of waste it looks like this. Waste goes in, biogas is produced, biogas is utilized as energy, which means this is where you get profit. And of course, because of it is continuous input, you have also continuous output, so residues have to go out too. And the reason for showing this very easy figure is because we see nearly every month a new businessman entering the room with a brilliant idea. What if we do biogas? What if we diversify our energy production and then we produce a lot of fertilizers and we cover the fertilizer demand with digestate totally? And I see that something is missing in this story. And when we talk about waste going into your into a bioreactor, and you get biogas out, then we have so many unspoken topics in here. And if I throw out just a handful of keywords as a word cloud, then I would add all those keywords onto that particular figure. And you see that nothing is easy anymore, because you have to have a kind of multitasking thinking to cover all the aspects of biogas production and digestate utilization. So it is technically complex, but the devil is in details, and sometimes your subsidies or aid money or grant money is hidden between the lines. So back to the waste. You produce your biogas from material that is either waste or that is not waste. They both give gas, and they are both widely used worldwide. They are common. So what is the waste problem in here? It gives us energy, it gives us nutrients. So what is the problem here? Then to go a little bit deeper into we, in a general terms, we as Europe, or me personally, or you personally, we want to use resources, and we want to use those resources meaningfully. We want to have we want to have nutrients, we want to have gas, but waste is waste. And dealing with waste, we have rules. We cannot have no rules in gas production while we have all the rules in every other aspect of waste management. So to be short, I cannot sell you waste. We can't trade waste easily. We should sell products instead. So we need to have some kind of an end of waste criteria, which tells us what we have to do to stop waste being waste, so that we are confident that it is safe and it is now secondary raw material which we can easily use in producing new. What is the point of the circular economy? So we need end of waste regulation on bio-waste, and also digestate, maybe biofuels or particular sludge types, and maybe we need a end of waste regulation about every waste stream. Just that we can't give waste to other people. Bio-waste regulation is something that is missing. We don't have Europe-wide composting regulation, or how to produce biogas as a directive. Okay, now it is slightly better, because now we have a fertilizer regulation, which is at least describing what is what, and making definitions and giving those bureaucratic-like classifications about output material. But it was also mentioned that on national level, we have some standards, be it in Sweden or Finland or British standards or Germany or Austria. So we have national standards, but not EU-wide. But lucky us, we have the European Compost Network, who actually took good or best practices out from the old standards and produced a quality assurance scheme based on knowledge of many others. So this particular quality assurance scheme is very educational and very professional because it is simple and yet strict. It stands on 4 legs. What does it mean? First of all, to make a good quality digestate or good quality compost, you start with good quality input material. So we need to know what waste is accepted and what waste is not accepted. For instance, just a short example, wood has a waste code. And wood in a form of a furniture and maybe painted furniture has the same code as clear wood. So we can't make compost or biogas from painted wood, for instance. So we have to be very clear what is allowed and what is not. Then we need to have some guidelines. What technology is allowed or what are the measurement points like temperature, time profiles. Then we need to establish the quality criteria, what we can follow or check in the laboratory. And this is not yet enough. We need to teach also the market how much compost or digestate we can apply, for instance. So it is very, very straightforward way of thinking what is quality. Also, we have 2 types of parameters that we need to measure in the lab. One parameter is called risk parameter, which means that we have values that should never exceed those. And we have quality parameters which we can't restrict, but we have to show the market every time. So quality parameters we have to tell, but they are not restricted in any way. And risk parameters, we have to be sure that we don't exceed those. This is the way of thinking. Now I would like to go to the bio-waste regulation in Estonia and tell you how did we do, because similar quality assurance schemes are not yet implemented in many countries, and maybe you need a little bit of motivation or courage to copy the same in your countries. So it all started about 10 years ago when the Ministry of Environment, which is today called Ministry of Climate, they drafted a regulation. And there was a big discussion which regulation we should take as a good example. And I recommended then that we should adopt the quality assurance scheme of ECN because it was freshly out, it was meaningful, it was easy to follow, and so we did. But it's not only that you take a regulation from one organization. You need to study what is happening at your in your home country where you produce compost or digestate. So we went to waste companies. We produced or we created a cluster of waste companies who were involved in producing compost or digestate, and we collected samples. We made several tests trying to understand if we satisfy those criteria or not. On top, we made a lot of tests on crops and field tests to see if bio-waste derived materials, they give some benefits for the market. The output of this side or parallel activities was approval from waste companies. We made also demo certification. We were clear with our compost qualities, and we kind of reflected back to the ministry that yes, we would actually implement your proposed regulation. So the conclusion of Waste Association was, we are ready, we are waiting for the regulation. So the first end of waste regulation in Estonia was on bio-waste compost. A few years later, the second one followed. It was about bio-waste digestate. And the third one came very soon. It was about wastewater sludge compost. So we have 3 end of waste regulation about bio-waste. And we have implemented all of them, some with better success, some with less success. To give you an example, how does it work? I would go back to the minute before the regulation was born. The skeleton of end of waste is written in Waste Framework Directive, which is, I'm pretty sure, which is also implemented in each of your countries' Waste Act. It tells that waste, in our case digestate, ceases to be waste when it has undergone recovery operation or some technology where we follow 4 criteria. First of all, digestate is commonly used for specific purposes. In our case, in today's webinar case, we use digestate as a intended use is as a fertilizer or soil improver. And I think it is pretty okay with it. We don't question this. Second is that there has to be a market for digestate. Usually the market exists because the material for biogas production comes from agricultural fields and it has to go back to the field. So there is no big worry about that. Then the use of digestate has to be lawful. Lawful in a meaning that we need to have technical requirements which describes or gives the values. And then we can compare with the values, and then only we can say that it is lawful or not. A minute before applying end of waste regulation, it was missing. But luckily, the missing link we can establish in every country, and usually it is in hands of the responsible minister, which was the Minister of Environment. So Estonian Minister of Environment applied criteria, requirements for producing digestate. Now this third criteria was fulfilled. And then we have just the fourth one. And the fourth tells that the use of digestate has to be safe. How can we be sure that it is safe even before we use it? It is a kind of tricky question because if we use it in a reasonable way, it is likely very safe. But if we overkill, if we put a very thick layer, then it is not safe. So the same material can be safe and it can be harmful depending on how do you use, not only what is the content. But if we establish the rules and regulations, how digestate is, how to apply technical requirements for digestate, we automatically apply criteria how to use. And then the environmental or human health impact is kind of fixed. So now we have those 4 criteria, which by a little help of ourselves, they are all positive. What exactly is certified? In today's webinar, we have heard in several times that we can use liquid digestate. But the same liquid digestate we can run through the centrifuge, for instance, and dewater it. So the end output is then dewatered or solid digestate. Solid digestate we can once more compost, which we call post-composting. Then it is under different regulation. We can never use liquid sewage sludge digestate. But if we take liquid sewage sludge digestate and we dewater it and we compost it, then we can use it under the third regulation. And everything is a little bit even more broadened if you use animal byproducts as one input material in each of those, because it requires different time temperature regimes. So we have a good grounds for applying certification. Assume that this is a solid digestate standing up in a big heap in Estonia. And this is my favorite question I ask from students. What do you think? Is it waste or product? Just for a moment, what would you say? Is it waste or product? And the intention of asking this question is to help you with a way of thinking. The heap of compost or the lagoon of digestate or the heap of digestate is not telling by itself that I am a product. It is you, a human being, who will decide. Should we go for certification or should we use this material without certification? Because they are both legal. So, Waste Framework Directive, as mentioned, it gave us 4 criteria. And now we are certain that our digestate or compost is potentially possible to certify. First, we need to agree what is the regulation that we use for certification. Is it a national regulation or is it EU regulation? In our case, we can use biowaste regulation or the digestate regulation nationally, but we could also implement EU fertilizer regulation. So make a pick, make a wish. What is your regulation that you are comparing your digestate with? Okay, let us assume that we use a national digestate regulation. This regulation gives us values, but someone has to compare and has to tell that we are in line with law or not. And the one cannot be me. It has to be a third person. And this person didn't exist. The regulation also describes who has a right to decide if your digestate has become certified or not. And we had to establish this certification body. And in Estonia, it is a foundation with a name, Certification Center of Recycled Materials, which was created in purpose. But we can create multiple such foundations or private companies. And for market, we need to be sure that those bodies, they have to be competent and they have to be legal also. So our National Accreditation Center, with the other name, the government, is checking if the certification body is competent enough. And in our case, they came to check, and they repeatedly come to check our certification process to be sure that we are in line with our national regulation. So those ones who want to give some practical hints, then this is the address of the certification body. How does it work? In this work, we have two interested bodies. One is producer of digestate, or the producer of biogas. And then there is a certification body. It is all between those two. Imagine that the biogas producer or digestate producer decides to go for certification. Then first, he contacts with a certification body, which is in our case the Center of Recycled Materials, and it has to have the right to do the job, which is a certificate. Then the certification body is checking the documents, because sometimes the documents are kind of it is written in the law what documents have to be on the table. And sometimes the documents exist in some other form, like you have ISO or you have EMAS, and it can be, or your activities can be covered by that. So someone has to check it. So it's a dialogue which ends up with a decision. Yes, you are kind of ready to start official certification procedure. Now, the application ends up on a table of an expert. That is confusing. So it is not the certification center who is doing field works and checkup, but they have to contact an independent person or company to avoid conflict of interest. So certification body does paperwork only. They do not go out to the site to do site check. Expert then picks up all the documents, fills in the formulas, and goes to your site with two tasks. First, expert is inspecting how compost is produced, how digestate is produced, because we are certifying not only the product, but also the process, so that also the process is safe. Then expert performs sampling, and he has to send a sample to the laboratory, and this laboratory has to be accredited. All methods have to be accredited. After a while, a result is coming back from the laboratory to the expert, and the result usually is a plain Excel table without any comments. Now it is expert role to interpret this data and to compare the results from the laboratory with the results with the target values that are written in the regulation. If everything is done, expert is producing a report, and the certification body is making a decision. And decision can be yes, and if it is so, you get the certificate. And this certificate is valid for 3 years. If the result is no, then you have you will get a list of shortages that you have to fix. Expert is not allowed to tell you how to fix. He has to tell what is wrong, and you decide how to fix. And then everything continues. So it looks a little bit bureaucratic, but actually this is not. And the reason why I say so, I try to characterize in coming slides. First, you have input materials. Input materials there can be two types of input materials for biogas production. Either you treat waste or you treat not waste. Both are described in annexes of the regulation. Annex 1 about waste and Annex 3 about non-waste. If it is waste, you have to demonstrate that waste is sorted at their place of origin. As it was also in previous presentation, it is allowed to use only source separated material. So you have to demonstrate that. Source separated and collected by type. And usually they all, regardless of how well you collect bio-waste, they contain impurities, and you have to sort it again at the biogas plant. As a digestate producer, you have to document it. You have to document if you accepted waste, and you have to document if you refused waste. Both. And you have to document if you clean the waste. Why so? In waste world, usually we don't tolerate that waste disappears. If you refuse waste, it has to enter up in official alternative waste treatment scheme, and it has to be for sure. That's why the document is declaring what happened, and we can follow where did you take the waste that was refused. But even if it was accepted, you document it. Storage area is the place where you bring all your waste, be it liquid or be it solid. It has to be surrounded by a fence so that no unwanted person can enter the place. It has to have a 24/7 security, watertight cover layer surfaces, and you have to collect leachate and stormwater. It is the same if you store digestate, which is solid. The same applies. If leachate happens, you have to collect and you have to treat leachate, because it is not nice if you make a business, if you make a kind of a positive cash flow, but you discharge untreated liquid to the water bodies. Not nice. And also it is not nice if your activity is producing odors or dust or noise or litter of birds or cockroaches or rodents. So you have to have a good housekeeping, which we call it environmental disturbances. Now, when you do your digestion to produce biogas, which is your main objective, you have to record temperatures. And you have two options. Either you have no animal byproduct, or you have animal byproducts. If you have animal byproducts in your game, you have to guarantee that hygienization is taking place, either before before bioreactor or after bioreactor. You have to demonstrate 70 degrees 1 hour, 12 millimeters. And we sample that. We take sample, and the sample we take from homogeneous mixed digestate mass. And now it's a tricky part. If you use digestate directly without storage, then we can't sample every day, and there is no batch that we can sample, because every day you produce certain amount of digestate. And then the sampling is solved like you have to take 3 subsequent samples, 1 sample after 2 months. And if they are all okay, then we assume that if you use same input material and same technology in the same biogas facility, and your result is stable 3 times in a row, then we assume that it will continue for the next 1 year. In case of success, that yes, it was so, we can continue sampling now and then. Now and then means during this 1 year where you have a certificate, we sample another 3 times, once per 4 months, just to be sure. In case of problems that you failed, we sample more frequently, every month, during the first month, 3-month period. And in case you deal with non-waste material, like manure, then we sample just once. So the frequency of sampling is depending on what is your input material. If your output material is solid digestate that you post-compost, then the sampling is batch-wise. You have to define how big is a batch. Is it a 1 year production? Is it a 1 month production? But it has to be 1 batch. And then we sample 1 batch. Liquids digestate is stored in a reservoir or the lagoon. And this lagoon usually have some national requirements. It has to be safe and watertight, and you have to take care of gas emissions. So the regulation does not add anything. You have to keep it this way anyway. If you have solid digestate, you can store it only separated from input material or any other type of solid materials. It has to be in a separate storage area. Mixing of solid digestate with other waste is not allowed. If you want to mix solid digestate with something that creates added value to your digestate as a product, you can add lime, you can add maybe clay, or you can add whatever the beneficial material. You can do it after certification, not before. The most important thing in today's presentation is knowing that you have to have internal audit in place. Internal audit means that you have to verbalize and you have to write down how do you work. This can be a part of general quality management system. And basically, internal audit is a cookbook where you describe to, or you can call it cookbook for dummies or cookbook for beginners, so that you have to describe what you do so that every single person understands how do you work. This is the most important document because it avoids, the intention is to avoid mistakes. Very often in biogas plants, we witness that there is one person who knows everything, but it is in his head. And if this one person is missing on vacation or maybe he quits, then there is a big kind of a stress moment. Nobody knows, why do we work like that? So internal audit tries to predict such unhappy situation and forces you to write down how do you work. So there is a internal audit plan which has 12 chapters. You have to describe storage area. You have to describe how do you do cleaning or removing impurities from waste, including accounting and documentation. So it gives you forms of documents. It tells you what are your measures, or it tells everyone what are your measures for preventing waste becoming in contact with other waste which is not allowed. It gives you a flow chart. It gives you measures for preventing disturbances, be it birds, vermin, or cockroaches, or smell. It describes how do you clean the facility. And the certifier, or the person who is checking, he usually asks a question. It's not written that I clean it when it is necessary. You have to describe who is exactly responsible for cleaning, and what is cleaned, and what is the measures for cleaning, for instance. Then it describes labeling, because you have to label both liquid and solid digestate so that we don't make any mistakes in putting the digestate on market, because at the same moment you have raw material in your facility and treated material in your facility, and we can't make any mistake here. Then you have to tell what happens to material that fails certification, because it can't disappear. You have to tell where do you put it. It is also legal to give it away to the farmer, but you have to do paperwork. You measure stuff, you measure gases, you measure temperatures, you measure weight, and every time when you measure, it has to be calibrated. So someone is checking and calibrating instruments, you have to describe that. Then it is safety, and then it is quality problems with digestate. What happens if some problems occur? What are your measures to fix it, so that it doesn't happen again? You give your digestate to the clients, and clients sometimes complain. Also, your neighbors may complain, because if you smell bad, they will complain. And you have to have your internal procedure. How do you fix complaints? And how do you notify problems? So this is the kind of your internal manual that you describe. It looks stressful, but believe me, once you have done it, it helps you, because it gives you a job split within your company between people. Certification gives you direct benefits, and I very much like that in previous presentation there was a SWOT analysis with benefits also. Be it solid or be it liquid, now it is not waste anymore. Now it is a product that you can sell easily without any excessive paperwork, and it actually gives you direct benefit when you use waste material together with agricultural material. Everything becomes waste. But waste types, be it grease or any food waste from the commercial input, it adds in your biogas yield. You get more biogas if you accept it. And if you accept waste material and it ends up in producing fertilizer, for instance, it is nicely in line with our understanding what is circular economy. You can use the digestate with minimum restrictions, and it gives your market clear understanding what are the properties of the product. With indirect benefits, you probably react some waste streams, which are the biggest source of failure. You didn't know that, but by performing certification, you will learn that some input materials are not as good as others. For instance, some waste streams may contain impurities and microplastic, and you are not interested in polluting all your output digestate with microplastics. So it's likely that you will learn exactly the composition of your input material. You generate trust in the market, and then you learn that good housekeeping, when you describe how biogas is produced and digestate is managed, it will give you a chance to avoid useless expenditures. So the biggest wish here is that we put carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus back to soil, and we do it in a safe manner, and we do it in avoiding any hocus pocuses and unwilling mistakes. Digestate is usually in very large amounts, so mistakes that you make, they happen in very large amounts, and I recommend avoiding mistakes by asking a third body that is not connected to your production, visiting you now and then, and checking if your activities are in line with our expectations on how certification happens. So we have done bio waste certification in Estonia for 9 years so far. We have done certification of digestate for 4 years, and we have started with certification of sewage sludge compost, but this is the weakest point. With biogas and digestate, we work on daily basis. So it is very much possible to produce digestate in a way that it fulfills certification needs. I encourage do the same in every country. Thank you for now. So if you have questions, it is time now to ask some questions.
Yes, thank you, Mait, for presentation. In the chat, actually, there are a couple of questions. If you... No, there is one question, yeah.
Yes, I see the question about microplastics. Microplastic is not mentioned as microplastic. It is in a risk parameter under the chapter impurities. So yes, we send a sample to the laboratory, and laboratory picks up impurities, and it gives us an overview how much we have as metal, how much we have as glass, and how much we have as plastic. And it is a percent per weight. We really don't know how much is it in a form of micro, because there is not there is no good standard for picking up micro level plastic from the compost or digestate. So plastic comes as impurities, not microplastic. Is there a cause? Do you mean that is there any study material, or can you personally come and follow? Is it a question about that? If it is so, then the nature of certification is similar to what is in Vegas stays in Vegas until it is performed. So it is between the certification body and the certified person or the company. We don't share information until it is done. But we try to encourage others following that. So our certification body is running courses now and then in frames of continuous education. We teach each other, and it is under the name of, how do I put it, lessons learned. We talk about how do we do certification, because lessons learned intention is to avoid mistakes. I can't come and teach you because I have a conflict of interest, but I can talk about general findings in frame of any biowaste teaching class. So I don't point on companies, individual companies, but if I generalize it, then it is allowed. And I personally, because I go to the composting site or biogas plant, I can't make a course by myself. And I can't teach you personally. But if you are one in a class and I teach many, then it is possible. Sorting, cleaning waste at the biogas plant. We don't have a certain checklist or recommendation how clean is clean, but the biogas producer is well aware that if he takes a small amount of problematic waste and mix it with a big amount of clean waste, then all his digestate may fail. That's why the waste stream that has the most amount of impurities is treated separately before digestate. And we have 2 places in Estonia where we do it on regular places, and we call it deep packing equipment. So that the biogas plant may have a deep packing equipment where they basically open the packages and squeeze out the content, remove the packaging, and then it is their own try and error to understand how small is a sieve size to remove impurities. And the other deep packing device is in a place where there is no composting and no biogas treatment, but they accept packed waste from commercial facilities, and they ship the output material to biogas plants by tanker cars. So it can this deep packing and impurity removal may happen on a territory of a biogas plant, and it may happen on a separate territory on a waste processing plant. So this much, but we have no testing protocol before inserting material into the digester. About updating quality assurance scheme, we have updated our scheme once. It was about compost, and now we have class A and class B compost with a very small difference. It is some heavy metal and a little bit of impurity differences. But we don't update our documents too often, because the way of thinking is that compost certification gives you a product which is a common market issue, and you have to agree upon all the regulations with the member countries. So it has to, the regulation has to be agreed between member countries. So it's not easy, it's not fast. That's why we don't do it very often. But we continuously collect ideas for discussion. Is it worth checking, or is it worth updating? I have multiple screens here. Try to read the comments. Yeah, we haven't checked the quality assurance scheme with the Finnish plans, but maybe we should, because we are the neighboring countries, and we should work similarly, even if the some of the basis of the certification might be different. So I can't give you the reply on carbon footprint at the moment. Comment about microplastic. So there is analytical method for impurities above 2 millimeters, yeah, but not below. So this below thing is probably for the future, because our intention is to prevent plastic from ending up in our agricultural fields. Yeah. Yeah, this much I can say. I would suggest go for certifying, because it makes nothing harmful. But it may make things better. So why not?